What is your financial situation? Is your business on solid ground, or are there some cracks in the foundation that have you concerned about the future? We'll jump into ag economic conditions, and let's get crop reports from Iowa and North Carolina in this week's Farmer Forum.
Live, having conducted very specific broadcasting vocal exercises via Farm Journal broadcast, this is AgriTalk. This morning we'll begin our monthly conversation with Dr. Jim Mintert from Purdue. Then it's our Farmer Forum with panelists Tim Burrack and Frank Howey. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson, and now the host of AgriTalk, Chip Lorre.
All right, Davis. Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, the Ag Economic Barometer for July has been released, and it showed some improvement in attitudes.
It really did.
Yeah.
Feels good.
I'm a little surprised with the way that the grain markets have been trading. I'm a bit surprised that some optimism, you got to call it optimism, has snuck back into the barometer. We'll talk to Jim about that in our monthly conversation with Jim, and we'll take some of that and that conversation and take it over to the Farmer Forum with Tim Burrack from Iowa and Frank Howey from North Carolina. It's been a couple. It's been a couple of moments since we've had Frank on the show.
Too many.
And, yes, glad to get him back on here. He's got Hurricane Debbie bearing down on him in North Carolina, so we'll get his updates on what is going on there. How are you this morning?
I think I'm doing all right. 73 degrees, muted sunshine, I guess I would call it. Although I do have my curtains closed, so it's hard to know.
It's hard to know
so
for
far,
sure.
A lovely day. I'm feeling good. I've done my broadcast vocal exercises. I've spent some time focusing, trying to get my mind squared away for the day's work. I think I'm ready. How about you?
I am on it. 69 degrees. 69 degrees. It's unbelievable. We're heading for a high of 78. We'll be there late this afternoon.
Okay.
But right now it is absolutely gorgeous. The humidity is low. At 78 on August 7th, I'll take that anytime.
Yeah.
August 7th. Yes.
And here's the deal.
Here we are.
I'm looking at nighttime temperatures, even clear down here in the Constantinople of the Midwest.
Yeah.
I mean, we're six handle. On Saturday, they've got 60 even predicted for us overnight.
Wow.
So when we talk about those nighttime temperatures, I mean, I know you like that. You're preaching nighttime temperatures.
All the time.
The nighttime temperatures, we need those to offset the smoke, the haze, right? Is that how that works?
Man, you're reading things into it now because we don't know what that smoke and haze is.
I'm reading things into it.
Yes, all I've done is ask questions. I've read nothing into it.
Okay.
I don't know where you're getting that. Yeah, up here in the Mile Wide City, we are looking at a low this weekend of low 50s.
Yeah.
51 on Saturday night, so it's going to be beautiful. All right, let's get to it. What do you got in the news, bud?
Sure thing. Well, let's start with the weather. Still talking about Debbie. Tropical moisture from Debbie will track northward with excessive rainfall potential from the Carolinas and eventually into the northeast corridor. Gusty winds will accompany the track of Debbie as this storm tracks northward through the first half of the weekend. Meanwhile, heat and fire weather concerns for the Intermountain West continues. For Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, excessive heat into Thursday. Here in the nation's belly button, Chip, we're going to have a decent week here as far as cool weather goes. Nice little reprieve.
Any hurricane can be devastating to those in the path. I get that. But this time around, I got to admit, every time I hear it, I chuckle a little bit because my sister's name is Deb. And when I was a little fry, if I wanted to kind of get on her nerves, I called her Debbie.
Really? She hated that?
She hated that.
Wow, she wanted Deb. Huh.
Yeah, so I used Debbie quite often as I could.
Do you think zebra cakes would be as popular if they were called Little Debs? I don't think so. You want that Little Debbie kind of roll off your tongue there.
That's
Bank of Japan Deputy Governor Shinichi Uchida sent a strong dovish signal in the wake of historic financial market volatility in Japan by pledging to refrain from hiking interest rates when the markets are unstable. We saw what the U.S. stock markets did here. It's been a global thing. There are those who are pointing to the fact that the Bank of Japan raised interest rates that just sort of spurred the whole sell-off in the stock markets there. Have you heard that, Chip?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. But the thing is, you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yep.
And Japan has only lost, 4 decades of economic growth?
Yeah.
If they're going to get anything back, they probably need to take steps that are best for them. Dow's 400 points higher this morning, by the way.
Yep. You know what? It's been a while since we've talked about one of these. 2 unions representing soybean oil factory workers in Argentina announced a strike over wages on Tuesday, halting activity at soy processing plants. After failing to reach an agreement yesterday, the unions announced plans to continue the strike today. Nothing like an Argentine port strike, Chip.
Well, and I might be helping the soybean oil market out a bit this morning. It's finally trading to the upside.
Well, talks between Canada's 2 major railroads and the union representing about 9,000 employees are set to resume today, just days before the country's Labor Relations Board is expected to issue a ruling that could initiate a strike deadline at both companies. This could be a big deal here, Chip.
Oh, yeah. Got to keep the grain moving.
Yep. Well, over 500 ag-related groups led by the American Farm Bureau wrote congressional leaders last month urgently calling for a new farm bill. Senator Chuck Grassley is not surprised the farm bill is a tough sell on both sides. Grassley pointed to disagreements about SNAP and nutrition funding as holding up progress. The senator is pessimistic a new farm bill can be passed until that key issue is resolved. Through the first 7 months of the year, China imported 58.33 million metric tons of soybeans. Chip, that's down 1.3% from the same period last year. Now, given hefty soybean stocks, negative crush margins, and weak demand from the livestock sector, China's soybean imports are expected to slow through year's end. Meanwhile, China's exports grew at their slowest pace in 3 months in July, missing expectations and adding to concerns about the outlook for the vast manufacturing sector. The trade surplus with the United States through July stood at $190.64 billion. Reuters reports EPA has confirmed it is investigating the supply chains of at least 2 renewable fuel producers, focusing on the origins of used cooking oil used in renewable fuel production. The increased scrutiny on UCO imports, particularly from countries like China, stems from concerns that these supplies might contain virgin palm oil linked to deforestation. And just one more here, Chip. Senator Chuck Grassley and Representative Adrian Smith of Nebraska and 20 of their bipartisan colleagues wrote a letter to Secretary of Commerce Gio Raimondo regarding 2,4-D imports from China and India. The letter noted, quote, given there is only one domestic source of 2,4-D with a limited capacity to meet domestic demand, American ag producers have to rely on imports to supplement their management plans. Chip, any changes to the duties on these products may have significant impacts on farmers.
Important story right there. No doubt about it. You need every tool that you can get to protect the crop and take care of some of the resistance out there that is happening. All right. Thank you, Davis.
You bet.
All right. Coming up next, we are going to have a conversation with Dr. Jim Mintert, director of the Center for Commercial Ag at Purdue University. It's Ag Economy Barometer time.
We've cleared the schedule for you. Give us a call at 855-482-5524 and join the conversation.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. Glad that you are with us on this Wednesday morning. We're getting ready for the Farmer Forum coming up at the bottom of the hour. First, though, each month, the Center for Commercial Ag at Purdue University, the CME group, Dr. Jim Mintert, Dr. Michael Langemeyer at Purdue, conduct the Ag Economy Barometer. It's a survey of farmers out there, and we are lucky enough to get Jim on here every month to talk about the results and what it might mean for us going forward. Jim, it's good to talk to you again. How are you?
I'm doing great, and good to talk to you as well, Chip.
Yeah, glad you're here. Okay, little optimism showing up here, isn't there?
Well, it was a surprise to us. I'm guessing it was a surprise to you too, Chip.
Yeah.
So the index, the overall index, the barometer itself rose 8 points to a reading of 113. Probably the better comparison, though, in terms of thinking about what's going on in agriculture, is to compare it to a year ago. And when you do that, the index is still down 10 points compared to a year ago.
Okay.
But then, the surprise again continues. The current condition index was up 10 points compared to June, but again, 21 points lower than last year at this time. And the future expectation index was up 7 points compared to June, but again, it was 5 points lower than last year. So, as we put in the write-up, Chip, and you guys talk about every day, the reason it was surprising is because of the declines we saw in corn and soybean prices, especially from the time we collected data in June to the time we collected data in July, which was the 15th through the 19th of July. But if you look at your calendar, you might remember what else was going on the week of the 15th through the 19th of July. Does anything come to mind, Chip? Republican National Convention was that week, and of course we were surveying,
coming off in an assassination attempt and stuff like that.
Our survey coincided with that, and we've seen evidence in the past where political events in particular can have a pretty big impact on sentiment. We saw it following the 2016 election. We saw it following, to a lesser extent, following the 2020 election. To be honest, Chip, we got caught a little bit flat-footed. We didn't have any questions on the survey that directly addressed those issues because we already had the survey in progress. But we're going to ask some questions related to more policy issues going forward to see if we can ascertain what it was driving this. But I do think that what happened with respect to the convention that week did, and the attempted assassination attempt did have an impact on sentiment.
Okay, those were very historic events, especially the assassination attempt, the convention we do every 4 years. It seems like kind of a low bar to move the attitudes, Jim, and to offset what should have been a negative influence of lower grain prices.
Yeah, and elsewhere in the survey, I think people were realistic about that. You look at the Farm Financial Performance Index, it did go down. It was down 4 points compared to June. It was down 6 points compared to a year ago. I might have expected slightly larger declines, but I think that's consistent with what was going on in people's operations. The Farm Capital Investment Index rose 6 points. That was a little bit surprising, but it still left it at a very low level and maybe was consistent with the idea that people are less worried about interest rates than they were previously, especially with all the talk coming from the Fed about possibly reducing rates here in September. So, I think those things kind of actually make more sense with respect to the underlying economics that's going on. But I think from a sentiment standpoint, when particularly going back to the 2016 election and the period following that, where we did some follow-up questions, people let us know they were very concerned and actually thought the election would have a big impact on things like the regulatory environment for agriculture. They thought it could have a big impact on the taxation environment for agriculture. So I do think there are some reasons why people felt that way. And the other thing, we didn't have a direct question on the survey, but we do allow people to make open-ended comments at the end of the survey. And I read those. And there were a lot of comments that suggested that they were very concerned about what might happen following this election, and the idea that the Republican side might be a little bit more in the driver's seat was clearly going to be viewed favorably by not everybody in the survey, but there were a number of comments along those lines.
Sure. Gotcha. Let's go back to that Farm Capital Investment Index. Like you said, it was up 6 points, but still very low at 38. The thing that impressed me is that 75% of the respondents said it's a bad time to invest. What does that mean for us going forward if 3/4 of farmers just aren't going to make any investments in their business?
Well, that's a good question, and I think it's a little bit of an issue with respect to understanding the demographics in our survey, because our survey is representative of all farmers. It's not it would be a little bit of a mistake to construe that in terms of being representative of the industry in terms of total investment. So and I say that because we tend to get a relatively large number of people every month telling us it's a bad time to make large investments. But some of that reflects the demographics of who we're talking to. These are people that are actively engaged in farming, so they're still commercial scale farmers, but these are also some folks that maybe have no plans to expand. Perhaps they're looking towards retirement. And I think that's influencing what we pick up with respect to that Farm Capital Investment Index. But it's still, if you look at it from a longer term perspective, we were way more optimistic about investing in late 2020 and early 2021. The last 2 years, we've been sideways. If you look at it on a chart, it's really just a sideways band between a range of about 30 to about 45, and most of the time between 30 and 40. So people are telling us it's not a great time to invest. And, from a farm management perspective right now, what would your number one recommendation be to most farmers? Reduce capital expenditures, right? Tighten your belt, reduce CapEx is usually the first thing you look at. Then you start looking at some other things as well, but that's the easy one. And given the fact that a lot of people actually made some pretty big investments when we had some very good years from 21 through 23, they probably don't need to invest that much.
Right. Okay. All right. I love the fact that each month you add something on an annual basis. And you're talking about rental rates, and boy, timely, obviously, on the question. What are you finding out about rental rates?
Well, it was a little bit surprising, and given that this is still kind of early in the rental rate for 2025 season, I guess it's, maybe got to take it with a little grain of salt, but roughly 3/4, 72% of the people in the survey said they think cash rental rates in 2025 will be unchanged from 2024. And then it was balanced between those who thought it might be lower and higher for the remainder. So I think 13% said lower, 15% said higher. But the big news was no change. But if you think about it, maybe that's not too surprising in the sense that even though returns in 2024 look terrible, right? I mean, we're really looking at potentially, one of the worst years we've had in the last roughly 15, 16 years. So I think it's going to be really a challenge. But we came into this with strong balance sheets and strong working capital. And historically, it tends to take more than one bad year to see very much change in cash rental rates. And I suspect that's one of the things that's going on here with respect to people expecting to see those rental rates stay about the same.
Okay. All right. Jim, when you think about the barometer and what it is telling us overall, what is the bottom line? So if you were going to take these results and present them to a group of investors on Wall Street, what would you feature?
Well, one of the groups that I have a chance to speak to periodically are some folks from Wall Street, but I also speak to some people, for example, in the farm machinery industry. Mm-hmm. And this confirms what we're hearing elsewhere, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be a challenging environment to move farm machinery here and at the end of 24, and I think spilling over throughout 2025 as well. Mm-hmm. We've got large inventories already. Farmers, many of them are well equipped, well capitalized already. They don't need to make purchases from a managerial perspective, an improved efficiency perspective. One of the challenges will be, can they come up with some new technology that is, in fact, cost reducing, that actually makes a farm more efficient? Yeah. That's going to be one of the big challenges going forward, because otherwise people are going to hold back, I think.
Right. I have proven to myself over all of our conversations that I'm not very good at predicting what the next survey is going to tell us. Okay? But it doesn't stop me from thinking about it. The August results are not going to be this optimistic because of the continued pressure on the grains, because of the announcements from Deere, the announcements from Kinsey, the scaling back. It feels to me like there's some pessimism that's growing. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I think, in my best guess, and we were a little bit surprised at this one, we were caught a little bit flat-footed. I think in August, we're likely to get back to more along the lines of what the underlying economics are doing. And I think you're right. I think it's going to be the negativity of prices starting to weigh on people. The caveat is we've got another convention coming up, and who knows how the political environment could influence things.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. It's always fascinating stuff, Jim. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. Look forward to visiting with you next month.
You bet. That is Dr. Jim Mintert, Director of the Center for Commercial Ag at Purdue University. Farmer Forum's next.
Time for Markets Now with the experts from Pro Farmer.
Joining us now, Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady. Beach, I look at that soy complex, and it feels like even though we're getting some help from the soybean oil market, the beans and meal just don't want to give up this pressure, do they?
Yeah, both those markets are leaking lower, Chip, at mid-morning. So about 5 to 7 cents lower in soybeans, $5 to $6 plus lower in soy meal. So notable losses there. I think the important thing is that we are above the recent lows in soybeans. And so if that support holds, we should avoid a big washout in the price action. If it does give way, then, look out, because we're probably going to face more technical-based selling at that point in time. Now, you mentioned soy oil. It's trading sharply to the upside. A couple factors there. Crude oil futures are sharply higher this morning, so that's lending some support. And then the oilseed worker strike in Argentina that's into day 2 is also lending some psychological support, if nothing else.
All right. Well, we've also got corn and wheat under pressure this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Corn 3 to 4 cents lower. The wheat market, it had been trading to the upside, but now we've given up those gains and trading about 3 to 5 cents lower in most of the contracts at mid-morning.
All right, take us over to the livestock trade. What's happening?
Well, both live cattle and feeders are trying to work to the upside, just not a lot of buyer interest there. And so just kind of waiting around to see. We had that big washout last Thursday, Friday, and then it continued on Monday. And we've been trying to stabilize from that point, waiting on cash cattle trade to develop. It's probably going to be steady to weaker for the week, but just not much buyer interest at the moment. And then hog futures are leaking to the downside on pressure from the cash index.
Thank you, Brian. Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. In the morning, you're coffeeed up and you're thinking. In the afternoon, you've calmed down, but you're still thinking. We're here all day. AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. It is Wednesday and time for this week's Farmer Forum. Let's get it started. Tim Burrack from Iowa. Tim, good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm all coffeeed up, Chip.
Good deal.
But
Good
are
deal.
you thinking?
I guarantee.
Oh, I'm thinking. Absolutely.
Attaboy.
All coffeed up and thinking.
Me too.
Fantastic. Frank Howey. It has been way too long, Frank. It is good to talk with you. Frank's from North Carolina. Welcome, my friend.
Glad to be on, Chip.
Good deal. Good deal. Okay, Tim, I want to start with you. We're going to talk financial conditions and everything, but we got to talk crop conditions first. What's your situation? How are things looking at the Burrack farms over around Arlington?
Well, given enough time, things look pretty good now. All the tile line crops have had enough time to grow and even out. Pollination on corn occurred on the tile lines first, but it filled in between. The same with beans, And I took a little tour around Iowa here a couple of weeks ago, and you get away from here and things really look really good. Of course, there's the Northwest Iowa problems, but overall, it looks good, and the weather really looks like it's going to continue to have it look good.
Yep. We're at that time of the year when we're used to talking about the concerns about heat and so on. But these cool temperatures are going to slow down the crop. Actually, as long as we can add a few days to the end of the growing season, these cool temperatures help this crop gain weight right now. I mean, it's setting up pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, we're just finishing pollination. We weren't planted early. The early planted crops look really good. In the area, they escaped the problems. And the other thing we're watching really close is disease. We're ready to spray, but the disease pressure, at least in my region, is really low.
Yeah.
And it's a great debate of whether we should spend the money or not at $3.60 75-cent corn.
Right. I heard a plane flying this morning. It was out. I'm not exactly sure where it was or what it was doing, but it had the sound of an aerial application happening over here. So there's some of that happening. So, all right. Let's bring in Frank. Frank, what's your situation with Hurricane Debbie?
We're expecting a lot of rain tonight and tomorrow, and the winds have died down, but we're still going to get some 30, 40 mile-hour winds. But we had a drought back in June, and now for about 6 to 7 weeks we didn't have hardly any rainfall, starting in late May. And then around the 1st of July, it started raining, and we've had over 14 inches of rain since then. And if we get the rain they're predicting, we're going to have river flooding along the PD River, which could impact the bottomland corn.
Okay, that dry stretch, what did it do to your corn and soybean crops down there?
It really punished the corn, especially early planting corn. There's been some fields, I farm in North and South Carolina, some fields in South Carolina that have been zeroed out with zero yield. It was just devastating, the heat we had along with the dry weather. And we came from real wet conditions until all that dry weather and heat, and the corn just didn't have a spring root under it and really got punished.
Yeah. You know, over the years, the Southeast, the Carolinas, Georgia, and then down across the Gulf states have had kind of a swing effect on the national average corn yield. It's either helped out or really hurt us, and it doesn't feel like the Southeast is going to help us much this year at all, does it?
No, sir. It's pretty widespread, even up into Virginia this year. But the irrigated corn is good. We basically left our pivots running for a month straight because it was so dry and so hot that the water was evaporating just about as fast as we were putting it on there. But I do think we're going to have a good irrigated crop.
Okay.
We started harvesting some dry land earlier this week, but and it's disappointing on the yields. But the quality is good because we got large kernels from the late rains that we received. So what did pollinate got pollinated, but there's a lot of stalks with no ears.
Yeah. Yep, doggone it. Most of that corn go to the hog industry down there, Frank?
Most of the area we farm goes for chickens and turkey feed. The hogs are a little further to the east, but yes, if North Carolina were a country, it'd be the 7th largest importer of corn in the world. We're that deficient on corn, and a lot of that corn comes out of Ohio by rail to feed all the poultry and hogs we have in our state.
Holy smokes, I had not heard that stat. North Carolina would be the 7th largest importer in the world if it was a country. Yep. Wow.
Yep.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, so hog production down there. We've got hog production up in Iowa, obviously. Tim's a hog producer. Tim, what are you making of Prop 12 and Q3 and all these issues? Is it going to have an influence on how you raise hogs?
Well, Chip, I'm out of the hog business, so I'm not in it anymore. So, but they still have influences. And I want to thank Frank for importing all that corn. Tell him to do more.
Keep it going,
we'll
man.
need more this year for sure.
Yep. So do those hog issues get much conversation in North Carolina, Frank? Prop 12 Q3 out of Massachusetts?
Well, there's been a moratorium for years in North Carolina where you can't build new hog houses because of the odor concerns from the neighbors. You can rebuild a farm you take out of production, but we can't increase the size of the herd of hogs in North Carolina. But anytime you have more regulations, it's a problem. But I'm not in the hog business. I have a cow-calf operation.
Right.
In addition to row crops.
Okay, Tim, financial conditions. We just had the conversation with Jim Mintert from Purdue University. The July survey showed a little bit of optimism, which, as he said, caught him flat-footed. If I'm looking forward to the month ahead, I think things might soften up a bit on the optimism. What are your thoughts on the farm economy right now?
Well, there's a little optimism when you look at maybe the production, but when you look at what we're selling things for now, or what you can contract for, there's not much optimism. It's just not good. There's no profitability left. And old crop corn, you're basically moving it now, giving it away to make room for the new one. Some people are moving it on delayed price. And I don't know how that's going to turn out.
Not good.
I don't see a lot of optimism. I mean, people are kind of, I'd call it melancholy right now, and irritated with themselves for the job of marketing they have done for the past year. Now they're trying to figure out how to deal with the next one.
Yep. Does that describe things in North Carolina, Frank?
We were fortunate. We sold our crops last year and didn't carry over crops, and that was the right thing to do. But farmers are very put out with the prices and the weather. I mean, nobody is excited about buying anything. I had somebody call me the other day wanting to sell me a farm, and I told them I was just mostly interested in keeping the ones I already had.
Sometimes you got to get into that preservation mode, and it sounds like that's where farmers are. The survey question that they asked on rents, Tim, that there is a fair, the attitude is steady on rents, but there's 15-16% that are leaning to the downside on rents. Are you hearing any lower rental rates for the year ahead?
Well, to hear it yet, the whole month of August, at least in Iowa, is negotiation period. Mm-hmm. And everybody's struggling with what to do. And there's a lot of talk, Chip, about rents need to move down. So I personally am looking forward to having the farm management companies lead this charge, because they let it when it went up, when they said things have to be fair, and to make things fair again. I'm hoping that the farm management companies will lead the trend to lower rents. And I think they recognize it, and I expect them to do that, and that'll help. And there'll be some movement this year, and with normal crops in the 25 growing season, there'll be more movement in August of 25.
Yeah. I would think that they would at least be open to the conversation. Because that conversation is going to be had. There's no question about it. Okay, we are in the middle of the Farmer Forum. We've got Tim Burrack from Iowa, Frank Howey from North Carolina. A couple of issues that I want to get to yet, including, does Waltz bring a bigger ag voice than Vance? We'll discuss next.
You're listening to AgriTalk, where the conversation begins. Join us at 855-4-TALK-AG.
Welcome back. We are in the middle of this week's Farmer Forum. Tim Burrack from Iowa, Frank Howey from North Carolina. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Davis is here as well.
I am.
Guys, during the break, I'm thinking to myself, Frank made the comment that there's not a lot of interest in investing and buying out there right now, preservation mode. Tim made the comment about there's going to be conversation with farm managers about lowering rental rates this year. you guys, you're talking about some things that would define a recession in the ag economy. Tim, is that where we're at?
I think we are. When you look at the John Deere layoffs, the Firestone layoffs, everything that's going on, and the lack of machinery moving, ag's in a recession. A lot of people don't realize it yet. I'm sure the politicians don't. They're so busy looking the other way, telling us how great things are. But yeah, I think we are. And I think the country's starting down. And I was with some international farmers last week, and I kept asking, are we in a world recession? And a lot of different farmers from around the world are questioning what's happening because of their prices.
Yeah. What do you think, Frank?
Chip.
I mean, and does it matter?
Yeah, Chip, interest rates have got to come down. It doesn't make sense to invest in ag right now because of the interest rates. If you've already got equipment financed at low rates, nobody's going to trade for a higher rate. So that's why the equipment layoffs are happening. It's real simple. I mean, interest rates have got to come down or prices have got to go up. And these hedge funds have shorted all these commodities and drove them down. And, maybe that's the value of the crop, but I don't think the value is low as they have driven these prices. And there's even talk that they're going to drive them lower. And how it's going to affect my operation is we're going to plant less winter wheat because there's just no money to be made at these prices. I can be broke, but I don't have to be broke and tired. So we're going to cut back, and we're going to put more land and grass for cattle and expand our cow-calf operation and cut back on our cropland acres.
Okay. How far are you starting that expansion in the beef cow herd now?
We've been doing it for years, but we're going to accelerate it. Yeah, we have about 2,500 cow-calf operation, which is big for this part of the country.
Yeah. It's big even out west, Frank. Come on. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. All right. You guys, political issues have taken center stage. We got Tim Walz as the running mate for Vice President Harris. We've got J.D. Vance as the running mate for President or former President Trump. Tim, I'll just ask you. We hear about Governor Walz all the time from our friends just north of the border. Which do you think is bringing a bigger voice to agriculture, Vance or Walz?
Well, Walz has got a history. When he was congressman, he was on the Ag Committee.
Yep.
So, he's got some background there. So I think it's going to be interesting in going forward if he even talks about that. There's not much ag talk at the political conventions. Republicans didn't, and we'll be able to monitor the Democrats. But I don't think ag's even on the radar screen for the presidential campaign, and it's too bad. Trade is huge. We got problems with trade with both parties. Biden-Harris didn't do much of anything, didn't lift any tariffs. Trump talking about more tariffs. None of that is good for us.
Right. What's your take on
tariffs
this?
Tariffs are terrible for agriculture, and it worries me. I remember when Trump was president before, soybeans, they had about a 50-cent trading range for about 3 years because of his tariffs, and China backing away from buying our soybeans.
Yep. And the thing is with tariffs, I'm not convinced that either the Republican choice or the Democrat choice is going to bring much relief either way. Is it, Tim? I mean, they're both talking about increasing tariff rates on China.
Yeah, and that's a major problem for us. And that, just on trade, if you use that trade issue as your political choice, like a lot of people use abortion, one vote issue, I don't have any place to vote on the trade issue. So, I've got to look beyond that to make my choices. And
so where are you looking?
I like Trump's other policies better, but I sure don't like his trade policies at all.
Right. What about you, Frank? What other issues are you looking at?
I think majority of farmers, especially in North Carolina, will be supporting Trump. But, the tariffs and the rhetoric, the first time he was president, I thought he was just saying that to get elected. But he sure, cost the American farmers a lot of money. And my size operation, it was millions of dollars. And the payments were capped that he gave. There were a lot of dollars that I just plain lost out on, and just because of the size of my operation.
Yeah, exactly. We talk about the battle between big and small, and all the time. And boy, when some issues like what we had with Trump and the trade issues pop up, and they try to make things equitable or equal, or however you want to say it, with those payments from the Commodity Credit Corporation, and it just seems to never work out exactly right. You guys were great. Thank you so much for making time for us today. Tim, we really appreciate it. Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome.
Frank, great job, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to talking to you again, Chip.
All right, Tim Burrack from Iowa, Frank Howey from North Carolina. Come back this afternoon for Naomi Bloom.